Actually horrendous, Mets fans. That is the key word tonight, because a day after the New York Mets secure their biggest comeback victory of the entire season, rallying back 5 runs down, a 6-run lead for the Cubs yesterday was not enough to prevail against this Mets team. Fast forward a day later, after David Peterson could not get out of his own mess in just 1.1 effing innings, Jonathan is batting practice. He gives up 5 across 2 innings. Sean Manaea and Clay Holmes are utilized today because Carlos Mendoza's like, you know what? Every single starter and their mother's not a reliable option, so let's just throw them all out there in a clear punt game by this New York Mets team, because that makes sense. Most certainly it does not. And now the New York Mets and us fans are reliant on the LA Dodgers to secure that victory over the Arizona Diamondbacks today. We were all locked in on the Pittsburgh Pirates winning in the 11th inning against the Cincinnati Reds, because if it wasn't for that, the Mets would be yet again out of a playoff spot. How we doing, everybody? Even though I know the answer to this, you're not doing good. If you're like me, your guy Wardy. I also apologize if I'm at all lagging to begin the live show. That is not purposeful. That just happens sometimes when we first get this party started. Same thing with my camera that loves to go out of focus right when I'm starting this thing. So give me 1 second, everybody, as we get this all set up, because I got a lot to say. I'm pretty pissed off right now. It's hard not to be. Jonathan showed exactly why this is the risk that you took when you first, of course, called him up this season. And the Mets rotation continues to be the commonality that we've seen all the second half. Simply not good. Because now, there we go. All right, Mets fans, I want to see your raw reactions. I want to see everything live on a replay right here, right now in the comments in the live chat. To all of our replay viewers as well, spam them down below. We have, unfortunately, pardon my French, kiddos, a shit show to break down, which was the New York Mets in Chicago in Game 2 of this 3-game set, as they get curb stomped there in Chicago by a whopping final score of 10-3. And as I mentioned, the pitching continues to be in shambles for this Mets team. A rotation that a day ago, their most reliable starter for a calendar year, and David Peterson cannot even provide 2 innings for you, looking like such a shell of what was once a dominant starting option for this Mets rotation. Kodai Senga looks like he's not even going to return to the Mets this year, because he continues to not look good, even when throwing BP that we see in the backfields there in Port St. Lucie. We see Jonathan today at the young age of 22 not get the job done against the Cubs, and I'm not nearly as bothered with Jonathan today as I am on the Mets putting themselves in this predicament. We all knew the risk heading into this matchup, heading into all the series as of late, when you have not had reliable veteran options in your rotation. Clay Holmes, a 5-and-dive starter that was utilized as a reliever today. Carlos Mendoza, I have so much to say about, because I genuinely do not believe Carlos Mendoza has any figure out what he is doing right now when it comes to managing this bullpen. He really thought it was in the best interest of the organization today, in a game where they were at minimum down 6+ runs, mind you. That would have been the largest comeback the Mets would have secured at all this season, should they actually go ahead and do it. Yeah, you mean to tell me even down all the runs the Mets were down early in this one, thanks to Jonathan and Dickie Lovelady, that, oh yeah, let's go throw Clay Holmes out there. Let's go throw Sean Manaea out there. And a day where you not only had Ryan Helsley available, who gave you 2 fantastic innings of work somehow, some way. A day where Brooks really absolutely could have been utilized, as he only went 0.1 innings yesterday. A day where you could have went another inning with Ryan Stanek, should you wish to do so. Instead, Carlos Mendoza really said to himself, you know what, guys? Let's throw out 2 other guys that we know are no longer starter options for us. So now we don't have a starter lineup for Saturday, and Sunday looks like a complete bullpen game of what very well could dictate the Mets making postseason play or not. Because when we talk about postseason play, when we take a look at the wild card standings, the Mets are still a half game up right now on the Arizona Diamondbacks, and they'll be a full game up on Arizona should they lose to the Dodgers tonight. They're still a full game up on the Cincinnati Reds. And listen, I'm more than happy to just put this one away, view it as a wash, but in the same day that this Mets offense decides to do absolutely nothing, unless your names were Francisco Alvarez and Juan Soto today, it is very discouraging to see a day after the Mets securing their biggest comeback victory. There's something to really rally around. I understand Jonathan was batting practice from the start. It is really difficult to get your offense going when down 4, 5, 6 runs every single effing ball game within the first 3 innings. I understand that. And even while understanding that, I also understand that this is a Mets team that rallied 5 runs down yesterday, and I was hoping to just see some more semblance of life. Yet, as a surprise, absolutely nobody, the soft-tossing southpaw and Matthew Boyd dominated this Mets team. The bullpen got the job done against this Mets team. Alvarez has 5 home runs in 7 career games at Wrigley Field. That's an amazing stat, but what isn't amazing is the fact that this Mets team continues to lose on the road. Still right around 15 games below 500 on the road this season, as a matter of fact. So when we look at who is the most blamed today, it is most certainly headlined by a rotation that can continue to not get out of their own mess. Say what you will about Carlos Mendoza's incompetence, and I have said plenty about that and will continue to. Say what you will about an offense that did not simply have it today against the Cubs team. That deserves a rightful criticism. While we can say all these things, I think it is most certainly true. This Mets rotation continue to be in shambles, will continue to be the demise of this Mets club getting where they want to be this season. The fact that we not only saw the pitching as poorly displayed as we did, a Mets defense that was yet again horrendous, not just in the outfield but in the infield, because Tyrone Taylor was activated by the Mets today. Jose Siri was officially DFA'd. We're going to talk more about that and content tomorrow, everybody. But now that Tyrone's back, he makes a gorgeous throw there to initially throw out a runner there that we saw earlier in this ball game from third base to get his ass out at home. The first time what's felt like over the past 2.5, 3 months that we had a competent outfielder in center that actually knew what it meant to have a decent arm in center to throw them out at home. Mr. Noodle, which is Brandon Nimmo, ain't going to get the job done. Cedric Mullins most certainly is not going to get the job done. Jose Siri will probably never play a game as a Met again after being DFA'd. So Tyrone Taylor, that was the one semblance of excitement this Mets team got early in this ball game, but that quickly soured as a man in Mark Vientos could not handle third base to save his life today. This was yet another prime example. Why is Brett Baty not in your starting lineup? I don't give a rat's you-know-what that you face the soft-tossing southpaw Matthew Boyd today. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, to justify not having one of your hottest hitters in all the second half here with an 860 or so OPS entering today's game not in the starting lineup. There's nothing to justify it. I don't care what anyone else says, and I understand the Mets were trying to maximize an offense today with Marte and Vientos back, but it completely flopped and failed on them. Why not try to make the in-game adjustments halfway through this one? Why not consider starting the ball game with Brett Baty at the hot corner and Mark Vientos at DH? Because we know how fickle Marte has been that we have seen in the second half. Again, I don't hate Marte, but the point still stands. When you have such a defensive liability at third base, you have to do something there, and Mark Vientos costed this Mets team, no doubt. Brett Baty makes that play every single day of the week that we saw earlier in this ball game that was on Ballesteros, however you pronounce his name, for the Chicago Cubs. The same way that Vientos had numerous botched throws there that we saw to first base, including Alonso having to reach way off the bag to get the tag there on Pete Armstrong in an unorthodox fashion. Between the bad funnies on the defensive end yet again, as well as a pitching staff that has no effing clue what they're doing, and a manager who has literally no clue what he's doing with this bullpen management, cultivate that to what is a very deflating, a very disgusting, and yet again the latest frustration in Mets land as the Mets falter here by a final score of 10-3. Shout out to our amazing sponsor that makes today's show happen, that being at SeatGeek, everybody. Make sure they utilize our promo code WARDY10, that way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase, everybody, because SeatGeek has the best grading scale system in the game today. The Mets may suck, but SeatGeek is far from sucking when it comes to their ability to get you the best tickets possible. As you guys see, you can go from 1 to 10 and red to green in their grading scale system in their app, meaning if you purchase a ticket in the 7 through 10 range in the rating and in the green, it's a fantastic bang for your buck. But if you do the contrary and the red more in the 1 through 4 range, it ain't a good bang for your buck. So make sure you guys are getting your tickets the right way with our awesome friends at SeatGeek. If you don't want to get them for the Mets, that's fine. Get them for NFL, NHL, NBA, concerts, comedy shows, you name it. Have fun here as the season may be coming to a close for this Mets team. And with playoffs still in uncertainty, you might as well get your plans set ahead of time for what you want to do once baseball is officially over. WARDY10 down below for 10% off your next ticket purchase. Thank you guys kindly for that. We have plenty to break down in this one, everybody. Like I said, we're going to summarize this ball game a little bit more beyond what I just did for each and every one of you, but this is really going to be a more in-depth discussion on the continued incompetence by this Mets team and how deflating it most certainly is for every single fan, including their mother, including my mother, including yours as well, to see this team do absolutely nothing when it comes to finding consistency. Hey, I'm going blue in the face saying the same exact thing that I've said since going back to mid-June, but when the Mets have been a bottom 5 team in baseball going back to mid-June, no one should be surprised by this. This is a continuation of more of the same. And even with everything continuing to go wrong with this Mets team, the Cincinnati Reds somehow, someway did not have a semblance of offense the past 2 days. They somehow lose game 1 yesterday against the Pirates in Cincy without Paul Skeens on the bump. They somehow then lose today with Paul Skeens on the bump, which makes sense, but Paul's out of the ball game at 85 pitches across 6 innings, and Yohan Ramirez escapes a bases-loaded jam unscathed somehow in the 11th inning that I was breaking down with Jake Brown and Draftneck Mark on Mark's playback stream that we were initially covering for the Mets today, but we quickly went into hate watching. Well, it was not hate watching, I apologize, but promoting and hoping that the Pirates, the Buccos, out of all teams, would secure their 69th victory of the year, and they did that. So the Mets got help. They're looking to get more help from a team like the Dodgers that are currently up 3-1 on the Arizona Diamondbacks heading to the bottom of the 5th inning. But what a disgusting shame it is that we have to continue to rely on other baseball teams, including the Pittsburgh effing Pirates here in the big 2025, all because the Mets have dug themselves in such a hole right now that should they lose a game tomorrow and should the Reds win, they are right out of a playoff spot yet again. So when it comes to gaining ground, can the Mets do it? They have an opportunity to do it with Noah McLean on the bump tomorrow, and you say to yourself as a fan, we got McLean, we got our stopper, we got something cooking here. But here's the massive problem. If McLean does A, not perform to expectations, or B, does not get the run support that he needs, the Mets are going to quickly find themselves in yet another predicament where they waste great pitching for a change. The one time that you have great pitching, mind you, who has been our ace in McLean, who has right around a 1.27 or so ERA of the season. He's been nothing short of an absolute dog. It is such a make or break game for the Mets tomorrow. I cannot emphasize that enough. Even with them still having a final series in Miami against the Marlins, and even with the Marlins getting curb stomped today by the Philadelphia Phillies, it does not change the fact that the Mets need to continue to win and stop relying on others to lose. The more they do that, the more they will find themselves out of postseason play, and the more we're going to quickly talk about come post this Sunday. Once we get into next week fully, we're going to be breaking down everything that went wrong for this Mets team this season, even though you know very well this is not a collapse. This is another thing that really frustrates me as a Mets fan. I want to hear your thoughts about this, everybody. The nonsense I continue to hear, even from my great friends, and I shouldn't even say friends, but, you know, constituents in the community, as someone who works with the New York Post. Joel Sherman, who works with the New York Post, stated a day ago on their YouTube channel, and I stated later on their YouTube channel that I respectfully disagreed with that take, but the idea that if the Mets lose out this season, don't make playoffs, that's the largest collapse in franchise history, just simply incorrect. People need to get their heads out of their ass and actually remember what 2007 was for this team. The same way that when people do the debates as to, oh, what's a bigger collapse, the Tigers or the Mets, the Tigers had a 10-plus game lead on September 5th in their division and are now trailing the Cleveland Guardians after losing 5-1 today that we saw. The Mets have been, oh my God, 15 to 17 games below 500 since June 13th this season. Anyone and their mother that's actually followed along this baseball team this season, which you can clearly tell some casuals haven't, will know very well this team has not been good for over half a season. Anyone that says otherwise has literally no clue what they're talking about. We have watched every single game with our very eyes. We have seen everything single-handedly go wrong with this Mets team. This has been a bad baseball team. And that is why yesterday jolted such excitement in myself and the fans like you, because we all sat there saying to ourselves, oh my God, the Mets actually did something that they haven't done all season long. They actually won a ball game on the road while down 5 effing runs. It's never happened this season. That was the first of its kind. And what have we been preaching on the platform for the past how many months? The Mets do anything this season. If they get where they want to be this year, which is at minimum a deep playoff run, they have to play different baseball than what they have to this point. They have to get the dramatics going the way that they haven't gone going all season long. If they do not do that, do not expect anything out of them, because they're going to have nothing to rally around. And even a day after, you have endless things to rally around, securing a victory 9-7 while initially losing 6-1 a day ago. They give you this the following day. Again, Jonathan's clunker to begin this one, unfortunately, was a stink on this. That was too much for this offense to handle. You can't expect the Mets offense has been as Jekyll and Hyde as they have been this season to bounce back and to come back from 5 or 6 runs a day after having their largest comeback of the season. That just shoulda, coulda, woulda. It ain't gonna happen. It's too much to ask for a team that has not simply been good enough. And speaking of not being good enough, that is the continuation of this rotation. That is why I say to myself, listen, we were waiting to find out how Jonathan would perform on the road like this. And Jonathan, who gave up 4 earned runs on just 3 hits in 6 innings the last time he was on the road this year, which was in Cincy, gets absolutely rocked here at Wrigley Field by not locating well, missing down in on the breaking ball, especially walking too many batters that we saw, and just looking like a guy that unfortunately had nothing going in his favor. The second batter that Ton faced today got absolutely screwed, and ultimately walked that batter when it should have been a strike 3 on the bottom left corner there. Beautifully dotted, gets hosed by the umpire. It becomes a walk, 2 on, and before you know it, it's quickly a 2-0 lead for the Cubs. They get doubles here that we see down the first base line, down the third base line. They're going corners, gap to gap, and they get Ton out of this one early. And listen, Jonathan continues to prove his inability to be a consistent starter for the Mets this year, but this is a young man handling a great expectation for the first time in his career. I'm not going to put nearly as much fault on Jonathan as I am about the Mets putting themselves in this predicament. This was a risk involved, and this is why I told you guys, if we see guys like Ton, McLean, and Sproat get rocked, I'm not going to give them hell. It's not their fault at the end of the day that they got rushed up here the way that they were. We were in desperate need to call these guys up because everybody and their mother in this rotation that's a veteran has no effing clue what they're doing. I have never seen in one calendar season a New York Mets rotation completely fall flat on its face to this ability. And we've seen a lot of bad pitching in recent years as Mets fans, but the one thing that we have seen this season has been unprecedented. Starting from the top, Frankie Montas dead before the year even begins, basically. Sean Manaea basically dead, same thing, because he has a loose body in his elbow. He had the oblique injury. He is not going to look good until this season's done, more than likely. Clay Holmes, a 5-9 starter who gave you plenty of success in the first half, not so much in the second half, and now is being utilized solely as a reliever. David Peterson has provided no length, no consistency, no quality for a pitcher who's now hit career highs and his his innings per season. He has hit beyond his limit right now. He's gassed, and he simply does not have it. Kodai Senga, the ace of this rotation, who was dominant in the first half this year, has looked like a shell of himself since his injury back in June, and now can't even crack the Mets effing roster after he was there in AAA Syracuse for a bit, because he did not even look good there. Every single starter option for the Mets that they began the year with is no longer even a feasible option for them, not even close to reliable. Tyler McGill is out until 2027 with Tommy John surgery. Griffin Canning ruptured his Achilles in what was a really strong first half for him, all things considered. This has been an absolute collapse of a rotation. That is a collapse, but that is something too that we have seen for so long this season. This is not anything new. This is what we feared, so this is what we're getting. Clay Holmes also not backing up Francisco Alvarez later on this ball game there at home plate. If he did, maybe he would have caught the baseball, because Alvy got it right in his mitt there. He drilled it to him in close range by a couple of feet, but it still stands. You need to make that play, Clay, and he was not backing up. Bad fundies all around, bad pitching all around, and the Mets offense that said themselves, you really think we're going to rally back for a second consecutive day? I got a bridge to sell you. We got our guy Sheik in here with a 2-dot holla. This is entirely on Stearns, sat on his ass for starting pitching. This is on Stearns to a degree, absolutely, but what is not on David Stearns is the incompetence by the starters who are supposed to be good. It is not on David Stearns when looking at Kodai Senga, still not getting it right. It's not on David Stearns for looking at David Pearson, who was your most reliable starter from June of 2024 to June of 2025, to then look like a man that can't even be utilized out of the bullpen. It is not his fault when you look at some of these injuries that have happened in this rotation, but I agree with you where there is the frustration, where you can point the blame for a man who did sit on his hands, who did not call up Noah McLean 2 weeks earlier at minimum than what he otherwise should have done, that did not call up Brendan Sproat at least 2 weeks earlier than he probably should have otherwise done. Jonathan, different discussion, but the point stands. That 2-week differential, north of a month differential of trading for depth starters before the deadline, where they would not cost you an arm and a leg or considering your young arm sooner, who knows what would have happened there. It's a shoulda, coulda, woulda situation. But what we do know is that the Mets, without those options, did not perform well. And now the Mets are quite literally in a position, as crazy as this is, listen to this, everybody, Mets game 3 starter, if they somehow, some way F around and make playoffs and get to all 3 games on the wild card, is not going to be Jonathan at this rate. It's not going to be David Pearson at this rate. It ain't going to be Clay Holmes with the way that you're utilizing him right now, barring changes. So who is it going to be? There is a world where the Mets may literally have to defer to a Brandon Waddell type pitcher at this point to be a wild card starter for them and what would otherwise be a bullpen game. That is how down bad this Mets team is. And you think I'm joking? I wish I was, but I'm really not. The Mets do not have any feasible options. It is literally next man up mentality, as Mendy has been saying, because everyone and their mother outside of Noah McLean and Brandon Sproat, pardon my French, kiddos, cure the earmuffs, so I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 has been dog shit. And I hate the fact that I have to be as blunt about this team as I've been, but there's a reason for it. They have been so bad for so long, and we have seen the commonality continue with their rotation. Say what you will about the offense. I have said time and time again on how inconsistent this offense has been throughout the course of the season. I went to bat talking about what went wrong about this offense time and time again, but by God, you can only blame this offense so much when they deal with the incompetence, which is this rotation on an every night effing basis if Noah McLean and Brandon Sproat are not pitching. And Brandon Sproat got hung out to dry his last start because Jose Siri, who somehow, some way was not charged with what should have been at minimum 1, if not 2 hours that day, all runs get charged to Sproat that we saw against the Washington Nationals. That was a joke in itself. That should have never happened, and because of that, Sproat was out of the ball game in 4 innings, 4 earned runs on 70 or so pitches. The second start where he was out in 70 pitches, when the last one, he went 6 shutties. So again, incompetence by Carlos Mendoza, incompetence by this Mets defense, incompetence by everyone around. Oh my God, I just want to throw my mic. And oh my God, it's so Jekyll and Hyde from what we just got ourselves a day ago. Man, oh man, did I want to ride on that what was such a high of a 9-7 victory. But what I saw in my comments, including Scott Greenwald, who I know is a longtime follower of the platform, as well as others, says this is fool's gold for now. I'm not buying into it yet until the Mets get some consistent winning. Well, folks, the Mets didn't get a consistent win. They have 4 games left to dictate their destiny this season. Will they go out and make playoffs? It's possible, but will they do anything come postseason play should their wild card series be in LA against the Dodgers? It's hard to envision at this point in time, but we're just gonna have to wait and see, won't we? GD with the $2 haul, thank you so much. We will never be winning ball club with Carlos Mendoza. Guys, I'm going to ask you point blank because I've been going back and forth on this topic for a while, but I definitely want to hear your thoughts about this. So please relay the following in the live chat. Spam in the live chat into a replay viewers. Go ahead and do the exact same thing. Simple question. Should Carlos Mendoza be fired once this year is done for the New York Mets? It's a yes or no, nothing in between. Spam in the live chat right now, everybody. I'm curious what you have to say. GD with the $2 haul. Mendoza's Louis Rojas level bad. I have a feeling you're going to be for Mendy to be fired if I'm going to go on a lemon here. KC with the $10 haul. KC, I was looking for you yesterday in the live chat, KC. I was hoping to see you because I referenced you, KC. I said, listen, yesterday's victory was for the optimistic fans, the ones that go through hell and back and still are being supportive and positive about the team. That is what I spoke on your behalf yesterday, KC. Now, today with the $10 donation, we get the following. Mets September, number 3 game win streaks. Let's see, 2 and 4 in the series, allowing 5.5 runs a game, 8 and 13 this month. It's miraculous that they're still in the playoff race, to be honest. It's been a bad team playing, bad playing, simple. Correct. The only reason why we are even talking about the New York Mets in playoff contention right now is because A, the other teams that are competing right now in the National League have been just as bad, and B, this Mets team had a 21-game lead above 500 the first half that we can't forget about, even though it feels like it's very easy to forget about because I don't even know what it was like this season to have a team that with that kind of lead. It feels like it was decades ago, not months ago. And since that point, since the Mets were 21 games above 500, they have done nothing but eat away, chip away at what was a great lead. You know what the Mets are doing right now? The Mets are doing what a very overly weight person would be doing if they were outside, let's say at a Buffalo Bills game. You know, when you look at, let's take for example, a really hefty Buffalo Bills fan part of the Bills Mafia, and he's at a clear winter game where you're supposed to be 10 layers up, but he's rocking nothing but just his skin and pounding beers all night. He's going to stay warm, and he's going to get through it because he's got all that oomph and loomp to keep him going. Now we know when it comes to a guy like him, he can probably go multiple days without eating, and he's going to be fine because he's got his body to burn off. They're going to burn those calories inside, and he can go about his day. The Mets have had that same kind of philosophy where they've had these 21 games built up in their system, but folks, they're a skeleton now. There is no meat on their bones. There is no fat. The fact that the heart is even still pumping and the brain has some type of cognitivity is beyond me. I don't know how we are still in this position, but we somehow, some way still are. And because we are still in this position is why we're talking about this Mets team right now. So I want to hear from every single one of you guys. Again, do you think Carlos Mendoza should be parted with at the end of the season? Because I had a really good back and forth with Draft Deck Mark and others there and Jake Brown in our watch party conversation just a couple hours ago. When on this topic, we got into the following, and that was as follows. If the Mets have themselves losing this season, there's literally nothing to justify bringing Mendy back. He's been horrendous. And my counter is, I know Mendy has been horrendous here. I know Mendy has not been the guy. And I know Mendy has been terrible with his in-game management. But my one counter is, it's hard to believe David Stearns is going to cut bait with a manager just after his second season and his first losing season with that manager when that's his guy. And secondly, it's also a hard sell, not just for the fans, even though I know Mendoza's a very hard sell to the fans as is. But I think it's also a hard sell to the fans and to the baseball in itself, looking across baseball, when looking at the organization this offseason to make moves and things along those lines. It's a hard sell to be positive about the team when they're not going to run their fourth manager in a 6-year span under Steve Cohen. That shows you incompetence. That shows you a team that has literally no clue what they're doing and is still trying to grasp at straws to figure something out, to go right back to the drawing board. Q, let's get ourselves some Jonah Hill and Mr. Bradley Pitt from Moneyball when they're looking at the board right now, trying to figure everything out with their players. The Mets are going to go right back to the drawing board and right back to square one if they part ways with Mendy. And I'm not saying that it would be necessarily the wrong move if they fire Carlos Mendoza, but what I'm getting at is, for a first-time manager in his second year as a manager, how much blame do you put on Mendoza when David Stearns set this Mets team up in part? I know some things were out of his control with injuries. Other things were in his control to have the largest utilized rotation / bullpen in all baseball in its history. The Mets have utilized 46 pitchers and counting this year, more than any other team that we've seen in MLB history. You have to think that that's a big weight on a guy like Carlos Mendoza's shoulders that has literally no pitchers to defer to. He looks like an ass utilizing Sean Manaea and Clay Holmes in a day that the Mets should have never had them throw, simply because the Mets really don't have many other guys to even consider the throw right now, because David Peterson was scared of his own effing shadow on the mound yesterday and was out of here in not even 2 innings. The Mets continue to go 10 steps back after trying to take 2 steps forward. But the one thing that we have seen all season long, mainly in the second half, I should say, not all season, because that's not true, a rotation that far exceeded expectations has not only come down to reality, but has literally looked like one of the worst things imaginable. They are just in such a terrible position right now with their pitching that is most certainly why my confidence level is very, very small when it comes to this team should they make postseason play and actually do anything. Now, that's an excuse every damn team that has had a crazy amount of injuries. This is true, but the Mets have actually had more Tommy John injuries than any other team in baseball this year, if I'm not mistaken. They only trail potentially the Dodgers. The Mets actually have had a pronounced level of injuries on the pitching front with that kind of injury in particular. I'm not exaggerating this. It's an actual fact. So I get what you're saying. Every team deals with injuries. This is true, and this is not to give every benefit of the doubt, but that does need to be accounted for, because at the end of the day, I think David Stearns, like every other Mets fan and evaluator, was thinking to themselves, at least we're going to have Kodai Senga hopefully be good when healthy this year. The problem is when Senga returned from injury, he hasn't looked good. He's looked like dog water, and he has been one of many in this Mets rotation that just have not looked good at all for the vast majority of the season now. We got a lot of members in here. We got some donations. Let's get to all those real quick, everybody. We got my guy Mario with the $2 holla. Bills Mafia, baby. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. Congrats on your Bills start. I'm a Steelers fan, so, we're neutral for now. Skullwax with the $20 holla. Thank you so much for the donation. Abso-effing-lutely, Mendy should be fired. Yes, let's go Mets. I'm going to go on a limb and say you're not a big Mendy guy here. Thank you for that donation, brother. I appreciate that. KC says with the $10 holla. Thank you so much. He's giving benefit of the doubt here to Carlos Mendoza. He says the following: I'll defend Mendy. He got dealt a bad hand with the pitching unfortunate injuries and underperformances and bullpen meltdowns. No manager looks good when their pitchers can't get outs and star bats are streaky. I get that, but I think there's pros and cons here. I see both sides. Will I lose sleep if Carlos Mendoza is not manager the day after the Mets are done playing baseball this year? No, I will not lose any sleep. Will I lose sleep if Mendoza comes back for next season? No, I will not, because I think either way, the Mets are going to have pros and cons that go with those decisions. I think there is risk involved by running it back with Mendoza, absolutely. The same way that I think there's risk involved if you don't run it back with Mendoza, you bring in another manager who knows how he's going to quantify and how he's going to look, the kind of aura or vibe he can bring to this team. Maybe he will be better. Maybe he'll be a better voice in that clubhouse, in that locker room. I'm not sure. What I am sure of is it is a terrible look as an organization to have 4 managers in a 6-year span. And yet again, a team that, as a surprise to absolutely nobody, unfortunately, is once more not living up to expectations in the Steve Cohen era. This has been a combination of Steve Cohen not making all the best moves, some lofty contracts, especially under the Zach Scott, and then Billy Epler regime that haven't aged overly well. This is a Mets team that's been overly reliant on a core that has not proven an ability to give you consistent winning. If this year is not a great example of that, I don't know what is, because we've seen this time and time again. This team is way too Jekyll and Hyde. And I think regardless as to what you guys feel need to be done with manager come this offseason, barring whatever the Mets may or may not do postseason-wise, there needs to be a clear change, a clear shift in this organization when it comes to the players that we're throwing out there. And not only are we going to see a continued youth movement with the rotation in 2026, we're most certainly going to see a youth movement and a change when looking at the infield and outfield configuration. I will be absolutely jaw-dropped if the Mets run it back with this core group next year. There's a great reality and almost a near certainty that we will see Mark Vientos, Brett Baty, Luis Angel Cunha, Ronnie Mauricio, at least one, if not 2 or more of those players not in the organization heading into 2026. There's also a great reality that the Mets may trade should they be able to find a suitor, one of Sean Manaea, Kodai Senga, Clay Holmes, getting in, David Pearson potentially getting into next season, knowing that they have a lot of great young pitching depth that's going to blossom, including Christian Scott and potentially a Jack Weniger, who dominated for the Rumble Ponies as the Rumble Ponies won their Double-A championship today. So happy for them. Congratulations, Rumble Ponies. Weniger was a Bulldog yet again. But the point here stands, everybody. When we take a look at the future of this team, there is nothing to justify running it back with this core group again. The Fab Four is fun, but listen, if the Mets do decide to part ways with Pete Alonso, I do not want to see Pete go, but they go down that route because they maybe find a younger option, a little bit more higher upside potentially, maybe someone that fits more of the mold. I don't hate it. The same way that if the Mets trade Jeff McNeil with his trade value being at a high, I don't hate it. The same way that if the Mets go ahead and do something when it comes to maybe the future, what they do with Brandon Nimmo, I don't necessarily hate it. It's going to be tough, and I'm not saying that Alonso shouldn't return because I would love for the polar bear to return, but the reality is that if these guys are really asking for king's ransoms on long-term deals and they don't find a happy middle or in between, they should not go out of their way to bend over backwards for these players. There needs to be some form of a change because there needs to be someone and multiple people held accountable here for what has been nothing short of a shit show in the majority of this 2025 season. Munetaka Murakami is an exciting player, but he doesn't know defense. If it smacked him across the face, he makes Mark Vientos look like a gold glove at third base. That's how incompetent the guy is. He is a DH first base option through and through, but he's probably going to strike out at a far greater rate than what you're going to get in a guy like Alonso. So I'm not exactly sure how much there is pros to outweigh the potential con as, say, a replacement there. Do I hate Murakami as a DH option going into next season? No, I don't. But I love Kyle Schwarber as a better option. That's a guy you give the bag to, I think. That's a guy you pry away from Philadelphia, even in an overpay, because you know how much he can dictate your game on a daily basis. The same way that I know that beyond someone like him, Ryan Clifford is a bat that I most certainly can see actually exceeding and performing well with this Mets team at some point next season. It may not be right away because he probably will not correct the team out of camp, but it does feel like that there is a reality where he can come out here and actually be productive as a huge power swing from the left side as a first base / DH option for this team at some point. Let's get into more of these comments, everybody. We're going to break down a little bit more of this ball game. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way in as we're breaking down, unfortunately, the latest shit show on Mets land as they cannot get the job done in game 2 of a 3-game set here against the Chicago Cubs. Continue to hit that like and subscribe button on your way to help us get to help us get to 250 plus likes to our 400 plus concurrent live viewers. Thank you so much to everybody watching live at a replay. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. We got the $10 haul from my guy guy Skullwax here, he says the following: it's on both Mendy and Stearns. That's my last olive branch. This is fucked. Pardon my French. We deserve better next year. We deserve better what feels like every year as a Mets fan. Thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. And I don't disagree with you. It's on Mendy, it's on Stearns, and it's on the players. Let's not forget that. You know, it's an easy thing to always just want to point the blame at one individual person. That's something that I think we do a lot in society about a lot of things, and I think that's really flawed and miscued. And I say that as someone who's done it himself, so I don't want to be a hypocrite here. I'm just being honest and truthful. This is a collective effort, and what has went wrong for the Mets this year. This is not one singular player. This is not one singular person in the front office or coaching staff. This is a joint effort at what has been bad baseball for over half a season. And when you look at the players, a lot of these guys need to be held accountable. You know, at some point you need to say to yourself, maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't bend over backwards about making a different coaching change or a front office change every single year. Maybe it's actually on the players who have had good track records, yet haven't found consistency, and for whatever reason cannot come together in unison in this core group. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to hold these guys accountable. And that's where I'm at personally as a fan. And this is not a personal slight on any player that we're talking about today, but the fact of the matter is that for the Mets to be 81 and 77 on the season, just a couple games above 500 when they had a 21-game lead, with all the injuries factoring in, all the inconsistencies, all that thing being said, there is still something to be said about holding these guys accountable. And when we get into this offseason eventually, we're going to be talking endlessly here on the platform about the things that the Mets can do internally, what they can do externally, what makes sense with parting ways with guys in the organization versus what doesn't, and everything else in between. I promise we're not going to skip a beat on that front, because we're going to talk endlessly. You're going to get tired of me very fast, because we're going to be pumping out daily content every single day about different ways the Mets can make themselves better for 2026. But unfortunately, we're going to have to go through the slog, which is a reality. The Mets do A, not make playoffs, and or B, get bounced quickly in the wild card, say against the Dodgers. We're going to have a month-long stretch of just talking about stuff in the offseason when the playoffs are going on and the World Series is getting set, and we're all going to be depressed about it and nothing else in between. You're going to be tapped out. You're going to have a lack of interest in my responses. I don't blame you. It's not going to be fun. I get excited about offseason moves like every offseason, but versus how the year ended in 2024 versus how it's looking to end here in 2025, barring changes, my God, what a contrast each season can make, truthfully, and what a contrast it can be in the mentality that you have, your viewpoint on the organization moving forward, because that's where I find myself in. I know that you guys most certainly find yourselves likely in that same category. Zach with a $5 holla says the following here. Let's get to it. And again, Alvarez has been a stud, no doubt. Alvarez hasn't been great behind the plate this year. He hasn't, for sure. Our pitching has been better with Terrence. Alvy can DH more over Mark. Mendy needs to know this, but that isn't going to happen much either, because you take risk if you start Alvarez consistently at DH then, because then you're not necessarily going to have him available as a catcher, because depending on how they go about things, they could potentially lose their DH spot throughout the baseball game. So while I hear you, it's more than likely not going to happen, because it would have happened already, I think, more so this season. I don't think Alvarez has been enough of a defensive liability for this team to warrant it, because I'm going to go out and say it. Alvarez is not the reason for Clay Holmes not making that play at home. It's Clay Holmes not being able to back up there. I mean, yeah, you can blame Alvarez to a degree on not making the catch to begin with, but afterwards, that's on Clay Holmes for not backing up. Now, when it comes to Alvarez's throwing lately, he has not looked great. We know this. When it comes to Alvarez defensively as a whole, I agree with you. He has not looked fantastic. But at least he's able to start to pick things up with his bat a bit to not only help compensate, but to outweigh the cons that come with his defense. Now, Mark Vientos is not the same kind of guy as the problem. Vientos, who is red hot for the Mets in the month of August and entering September, has been ice cold the past north of 2 weeks right now, has been ice cold defensively all season long. So you can't sit here and justify the continued starts for Vientos at third when he isn't even performing with the bat, because he's a net negative in both those areas at that point in time. Vientos feels like he's been striking out at least 50% on fastballs right now that we've seen over the past couple weeks. He has just swung and missed through so much. He had some nasty breaking pitches down and in he had to deal with from the southpaw and Boyd today, but it doesn't change the fact that there has not been good consistency there lately too, which again adds into the greater defensive problem with this team. It has not just been one individual thing. The Mets just have been, 5 straight baseball games now the Mets have recorded at least 1 error. They they haven't looked good. And mind you, Mark Vientos' error today was his 8th error of the season at third base. And for context, Mark Vientos has now played every single game this year at third base. He's had a lot of reps at DH, and this goes to show you exactly why. Mark Vientos' defense at times has you missing J.D. Davis from 2019, and you know we're down bad if I'm mentioning J.D. Double D Davis when we know he was nothing short of a liability at the hot corner up until the very end of his tenure as a New York Met, because he dealt with the hand injuries, yada, yada, yada. Then he rejuvenized his career a little bit with the Giants, and now he's a guy that's not going to be a major league player. So this Mets offense today, they were out hit 11 of 4. Nothing to be seen with the bats whatsoever today. As I mentioned, just rolling over, a whole lot of dying. And this one, Francisco Lindor has a 267 batting average now and 801 OPS. Soto with his 43rd home run this season that he smacked right before the ballgame ended. Garbage time home run for Soto, who has 31 home runs this year, solo home runs out of his 43. Yeah, that has been one gripe you could say about Juan this year. He's been amazing otherwise, but not getting nearly as many bombs with guys on base is something that we hope to see more of next season. 267 average, 935 OPS. Alonso, 0 for today. Alonso looked like shit today. I'm going to call it how it is. And Alonso, who entered this series with a 1,200 OPS or just under in Wrigley Field in his career, very discouraging. He's only hit one good baseball this entire series thus far. And you know what? For the final week of the season, I need Pete to lock the hell in. This is not good. Alonso, 271 average, 867 OPS. Marte, 274 average, and his 758 OPS today that we saw for Marte. Got nothing going at DH today. Vientos had the run score today that we saw, 235 average, 706 OPS. Nimmo, 1 for 4, 261 average, 763 OPS. Alvarez with the 2-run ding-dong, 260 average, 803 OPS. Alvarez now has 10 home runs on the season, or 11 now if I'm not mistaken. McNeil, 247 average, 757 OPS. And by the way, Alvarez with a 260 average, 800 OPS. Not a single fan should be complaining about that, knowing that this man has a broken left pinky, has a partially torn UCL in his thumb that requires surgery at the end of the season, has been drilled left, right, and center all year long, has dealt with multiple ailments. Francisco Alvarez is helping carry on the back this Mets team and this offense the final week of the season at the young age of 23. Miss me with the nonsense to any of you casual schmucks out there that actually want Alvarez to be DFA'd. He is doing things unprecedented at his age at the catching position. He's far from perfect, and I'm not here to say that he is, but the notion that the Mets should part ways with this man, the way that you guys were glamoring for so much this year, just shows how much you guys have no clue how to handle the actual ebbs and flows of a full 162 of a season and what it means to have a player like this who made his debut at 21, hit over 20 home runs at the age of 21, and is still finding progression in his offensive game a couple years later, thanks to JPR and Sebia giving him the confidence that he needed in AAA, because Eric Chavez most certainly could do anything but at the major league level. Shout out Alvy, even with all the defensive miscues. McNeil, 247 average, 757 OPS. Tyrone Taylor, 0 for 3, 216 average, 586 OPS. TT did not get a hit today, but he did provide more defensively than anyone and their mother has provided over the past calendar month or so. So there's that going. Let's see. Michelle Riley, Wardy, making bank off you, right? What are we talking about, two cats? I have no clue who you're referring to, but thank you so much for chiming in. I appreciate it. Let's see here. We got Kevin King, great member in the chat. Thank you so much for being here, Kevin. I appreciate that. We got Alvin in the chat. How are you, Alvin? Thank you for being here. We got Rebecca Ellen in the chat. We're going up the list here. Let's go up to more of our members here if I missed anyone. Again, guys, hit that like and subscribe on your way to Alan Gonzalez. How we doing, baby? We got Chi-Chi. Get the Yayo. How we doing? We got Zach Flaherty in the chat. We got Michael Valenti in here. We got Rebecca. We got Pat White, great member in here. We got Kevin. We got PB9, great member. I know we got Dave around here somewhere. I know Steve Lon's lurking. He just doesn't want to be in here when it's a bad time. Adorable Snowflake, great member. Happy to have you in here as well. Bobby G, great member. Thank you so much for chiming in. I appreciate that, Michael. As we mentioned earlier, we got Knicks Nation here. We got, so Michelle Soto, loser Mets fans with Soto could have a year like Schwarber. No, you fucking idiot. He has 2 more WAR than Schwarber this year, you dunce. Do you not understand the true value of a player? Kyle Schwarber's having a great year for the Phillies. But if you think that a single Mets fan could give a rat's ass about Schwarber having a year greater than Soto, I got a bridge to sell you, my guy, because he literally isn't having one. Maybe look at the numbers. Maybe look at the value of a true well-rounded player. You can't find that, because even with Juan Soto not being able to handle in routine play and right field, he's still a better defender right now than what Kyle Schwarber's giving you this season. And add on top of that, I respect Kyle Schwarber a lot as a hitter, and I would love him in this Mets lineup, and I would love to prime away from Philadelphia. But I will take Juan Soto 10 times out of 10 every single day of the week for the next 15 years, and I'll have a smile on my face in doing so before saying to myself, oh, I wish I had Kyle Schwarber on my team. No, one is going to go in the Hall of Fame as a lock of a guarantee of a generational talent. The other may get in the Hall, but it's going to take continued dominant years of another decade at least of producing ridiculous home run rates. And he may be able to do that, and good for him if he can, but no Mets fan is losing sleep over what Juan Soto's done versus what we're getting in someone like Kyle Schwarber from the Phillies this year. Yeah, miss me with that bullshit. That is as stale as all your takes that I've seen so far, and that's okay. And the fact that you said, I'm truly sorry for you Mets fans, yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah, Jeff McNeil being our best center field option, you're not wrong. I can agree with you on that one, Michelle. That's the first right thing you got here today. I'm glad it took you long enough to find it. Pat here, great member with the $2. Love you, Pat. Wardy, no, not answering that, but I thank you for the donation. Really do appreciate that. Pat's out here acting wild, because how can he not act wild late night here, 11:35 p.m. Eastern, as the Mets get curb stomped in Chicago, and they look to continue, hopefully, winning ways with a series victory tomorrow with our stopper on the bump and Noah McLean towing the rubber tomorrow. So we're going to have to see what happens tomorrow with McLean, everybody. But for now, let's give you guys just a brief more of a summary and just everything that went wrong for this Mets team. Again, Carlos Mendoza's incompetence just continues to frustrate the hell out of me. I understand it's not his fault that Jonathan didn't have it today, but at the same time, holy shit, how did you really think to yourself that throwing both Clay Holmes and Sean Manaea today would be a feasible option? Because now you're likely not going to utilize them tomorrow. You're likely going to not utilize them the day after that. You're probably not going to utilize any of these guys until we get to the weekend at minimum. Like, what the hell are we actually doing here? I just don't understand. I don't understand. And buddy, it's not a fair weather fan. It's not my fault that I was 15 in 2015, and that's when I first started to get locked in on baseball. My guy, come on. What are we doing here, you fair weather fans? No, Michelle. The only one fair weather is you, talking about things irrelevant to the chat here, which is pretty fitting for a Philly fan. Why to come in and chop in when this is completely irrelevant to you? It's gonna happen though. It's okay. I understand. People want attention at night, and I'm giving it to you. So I'm glad you got it. I'm glad you got your 5 seconds. Now that'll be the last 5 seconds you get though, because a lot of other people deserve the recognition in today's chat here. And let's see. And that's exactly what I'm saying, Eric. Final thing I'll say on the Soto Schwarber stuff. Kyle Schwarber is a tremendous home run hitter, a fantastic home run hitter. I really want him on the New York Mets, and I have no shame in saying that at all. But in that same light, I got a bridge to sell you if you think that any fan actually wants fucking Kyle Schwarber over Juan Soto any day of the week. Any day of the week. If Kyle Schwarber goes ahead and continues this great pace in the postseason and is the World Series MVP, then I think that'll be the first time we can have a rightful discussion about, okay, you know what, maybe you have something. But even when saying that, Juan Soto still has a World Series ring. Juan Soto already knows everything it takes to be a winning player. He performs every single postseason he's in for the most part, including being dominant for the Yankees last year. So again, I'm just going in laps here by coming to the same conclusion that no, I would not lose sleep over it. Now, to get in here briefly, everybody, let's take a look at 2 things I really want to highlight, and it is as follows. And it starts with the fact that, as we know, Jonathan did not have it at all in this ball game. As we got ourselves right away, folks, to the bottom of the 3rd inning, it quickly became 2-0 Cubs. And it became 2-0 Cubs because after Matt Shaw got on with a single today, I know that he was the topic of certainly a topic, to say the least, from Gary Cohen's remarks yesterday to him curb stomping the Mets today. It's almost like we all saw that coming today, and that has nothing to do with personal opinion, political view, or anything like that. Just, nature of the beast. Usually when Gary will make a call out about a player in any which connotation, positive or negative, before things happen, usually things don't bode well. And Gary, unfortunately, as much as I love Gary in the booth for this Mets team, he has been a horrendous jinx, and he famously says that he doesn't believe in jinxes, which I honestly think is such an ass comment to make, considering that how many fans believe in jinxes the same way that we live and die with baseball games, because we're emotionally irrational through and through, and we're tired of hearing, oh, this guy's coming up to the plate, hasn't hit a grand slam in 5 years. Oh no, it's high, it's far, and it is gone. You know, like that kind of shit just drives me up a wall. Yet he always has to a T, throw every statistic out there, because God forbid if we didn't get for once, for one instance, a stat that could only hurt the Mets in a key situation late in the ball game, not relayed by the SNY broadcast. But that's just me and my TED Talk, and I'll leave it at that. Matt Shaw with the single, Michael Busch with the walk, Nico Horner then with the single, mind you, and then we see, bam, Ian Happ with the double down the line, and that makes it a 2-0 Cubs lead. After that, we see right away, everybody, not just that, we see Seiya Suzuki, his 31st double of the year, makes it 4-0 right away. So bam, back-to-back right away, all these doubles happening down the lines, whether it's first base, whether it's third base, and right before you very know it, you barely see it, bam, the Mets are down 4-0 in this ball game. Then it becomes 5-0 as we would see Lovelady come in, Dickie Lovelady for Jonathan, who couldn't get out of his own mess. He somehow, some way gets out of this one, not terribly. He gives up the sac fly to PCA, but that's all she wrote. It's 5-0. Then it becomes, you guessed it, a 6-0 Cubs lead, because who hits his 13th home run of the year? Yeah, it's Matt Shaw, helping his Cubs team down the stretch here, competing in postseason play. Afterwards, we see another remainder, a 1-2-3 for the remainder of the inning, but not before it's a 6-0 lead for the Cubs. Then Alvarez, with his ding-dong, his 11th of the season, makes it a 4-run deficit here for the Mets, but 4 runs still felt like a tall task for this team, given everything that went wrong and so awry for them pitching-wise in this matchup. Alvarez's 11th home run this season, he got all that one. It was a nice bomb, too, but that's all she wrote. Then we see Pico Armstrong would make it a 7-2 ball game, as he would reach on a throwing error by Vientos, mind you. So Marky V, who costed the Mets on multiple occasions defensively today, he costed them by not being able to handle a ball there that we saw that initially gave the Cubs their early lead. Then that didn't help things all that much either, folks, that we saw, and that made it 7-2. Then the wild pitch by Clay Holmes makes it 8-2. Clay did not back up after the wild pitch. If he did and was able to get in there fine, then it would have been okay. Chalk, you're getting your 5 effing seconds because you were so adamant about him, because I'm feeling nice today. So there you go. Let's see. Someone shut her screen time. It's okay. Let's see here. In the 6th inning, nothing. In the 7th inning, Michael Busch, ding dong. Who does Michael Busch hit the home run off of after Matt Shaw, who continues to torch the Mets today, steals his 17th bag after a single, mind you? Matt Shaw, 3-hit day today. I'm curious what Gary had to say about that. I gotta be honest. And I say that, again, as someone who is on no side of the coin here. Just from yesterday to today, it's very fitting, unfortunately. Michael Busch, with his 31st home run of the year, eating a meatball up by, yes, you guessed it, Sean Manaea, the southpaw, because, yes, it was a brilliant idea to have Sean Manaea come in this ball game in this instance, but surely that's what the Mets needed out of everything. And Michelle, I'm sorry to break this to you, little girl, but you are now going to be bounced, and it has nothing to do with you personally. It has more so to do with the fact that I just can't stand looking at you, if I'm being quite frank. I don't know what you look like personally. I see a cartoon burger as your PFP, but that's enough for Wardy to say, I don't need to deal with a schmuck Philly fan in here. Why? Because I have to deal with you guys as is throughout the year. I've given you guys your kudos, and rightfully so, but now it's time for you to get your little ass out of here, because you want the attention. If you gotten too much of it now, you know, fool me once, shame on me, but fool me twice, not so much. Bye-bye. Adios. Yesterday, it was a Yank fan that just won a little bit too much. Today, it's a Phillies fan. That's okay. Thank you for the viewership. Thank you for the ad money. I certainly appreciate that. Now, thank you for the donation as well. Gary Cohen, I'm not going to say that, Pat, but I do appreciate the donation there. Thank you so much for it. I disagree, which is why I'm not going to announce it, but I'll gladly take the money. So thank you so much for that, Pat. We see Michael Busch make it a 10-2 ball game. Then afterwards, hope you guys have enjoyed as well. I take a lot of pride and have a lot of fun in my wordplay and rolling with the punches like effortlessly without really hesitating, no matter what the chat throws at me. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it the way that I've been semi-proud of myself for how smoothly I've went about this one. There are some nights where I feel like I'm a little rough around the edges. Tonight I'm feeling pretty damn locked in about every single thing that I have to say. I don't feel like I'm tripping up at all here. In the 7th inning, the Mets got nothing going. Yada, yada, yada. We see Juan Soto's bomb there. In the 8th inning, whoop-de-doo, Basil, 10-3, and that does it for the ball game. Mets go on to lose this one again by a final score of 10-3. We talked about the Mets offense. Let's talk briefly about the Mets pitching. Jonathan today. Love you, Jonah, but I sadly have to give you a 2 out of 10 today. 2 for the amount of innings that you pitched, because I can't really give you anything more. You did not have it today. You walked. Granted, I will say, got absolutely screwed on one of the walk calls. The first walk call should not have happened at all. It should have been a strike 3 call, bottom corner, but he did not get it. He got squeezed and unfortunately didn't go in the favor. Beyond that, though, This bullpen today didn't look great either. Can't really give it a great grade. The fact that Ryan Helsley was our most reliable pitcher out of 5 pitchers today tells you how down bad this Mets team really is. Ryan Helsley, though, major tip of the cap, but he had an 11-year ERA, what felt like yesterday, and now it's down to 4.58. Say what you will about Ryan Helsley, and yes, I can say a lot about him because he effed this team in more ways than one when we actually need him to perform, not in garbage time like this, but Ryan Helsley, great work today, looked really good. Would be awesome if we can see Helsley be productive at least for a couple more outings before the season wraps up, because I do not envision the Mets are going to bring him back beyond this year. He's going to want closer money. He's going to want to close a role. Unless the Mets allow Edwin Diaz to walk and really think that Helsley can be that guy in this market, I do not anticipate him returning by any stretch of the imagination. Let's see. You need to see the worst strike this season on Max Muncy, third inning Diamondbacks game. I'll definitely check that out. Speaking of the Diamondbacks, they are still trailing by 2 here with the Dodgers having 1 runner on in the top of the 8th with 2 out there. We should put Mets highlights over Jet 2 Holiday. That's funny. That's pretty accurate. Mets bullpen today, I'm going to give a collective grade of a 3.5. I did not like it. The only reason why there's any solid grade in there is Mr. Ryan Helsley. Before we get out of here, everybody, let me just address a couple things. JP, thank you for the donation so much. I appreciate that, JP. Worry, the Mets make the playoffs. They should go with a 3-man rotation, McClain, Holmes, and Sproat. You know, here's the thing. I was literally saying this in my watch party with Draft Neck Mark earlier today. I said to myself, after Tom got rocked, 4-1 Dodgers, let's go, baby. Huge 2-out heading for LA. The only time I'm rooting for the Dodgers this week, because, you know, come the weekend, heading into next week, we could very well be playing them for that wild card matchup, which I don't love the idea, but that very well could be happening or something along those lines. So whether it's the Dodgers, whether it's someone else, we'll wait and see, but I think it's leaning towards that way as of now. Regardless, though, everybody, going back to that comment here, I said after Tom got rocked today, that Holmes is our next most reliable option outside of Sproat and outside of what we saw there in McClain. But the problem is, even if McClain gets rocked tomorrow, he's still going to be your game 1 starter. Let's be frank. If Sproat does not look good against the Marlins, we have a massive problem. Like a really, really big problem. No doubt in my mind. And separate from that, Clay Holmes has been continued to be utilized as a reliever. So it's hard to envision the Mets, who have thrown Holmes and back-to-back reliever outings, are now going to put him in a starter role. But the thing is, they still may go down that route because Carlos Mendoza is grasping at straws for any semblance of life with this rotation, life with this bullpen, and get length out of them, especially that, anything that they had pre-planned before the season, or, during the season, is completely out the door now. Everything that they initially had in mind for how they want to go about the rotation structure, the days, the healing, all that is fickle and means shit now. And it means shit because the Mets have put themselves in this position by playing, pardon my French, shit baseball for over half a season now. Do I think Saturday, Sunday is piggybacking between Senga, Manaea, Holmes, Peterson? The worst thing is that even as bad as Senga apparently did not look great in his bullpen yesterday, you still may have to consider him right now because you literally don't have any other options. Brandon Waddell, Justin Hageman, the same guys that I gave Stern so much shit for that we saw in the first half this season for utilizing in those piggyback outings, in those spot start outings, we're almost longing for to be considered now just because we need arms that can give us some kind of outs here. It is so effing bad that I would rather Huascar Brosban start a wild card game for me right now than basically any veteran starting option that we have, with the exception of Clay Holmes. That is how bad of a position this team is in right now. That's really not good. So if you're asking for my opinion, if the wild card started tomorrow, and let's say everyone was on normal health, I would go McClain game 1, Sproat game 2, and if you go game 3, obviously, and you would be going game 3, I'd imagine more than likely, then I would say game 3 would be originally Clay Holmes, but if you're really going to F him up and have him utilized as a starter on Saturday or Sunday, you're probably not going to be able to utilize him then, so then your next option is going to be, who is it going to be? It's a bullpen game. I think the reality, and you're not going to want to hear this, is that I think if the Mets play 3 games, get to a 3rd game in the wild card, it's going to be a full bullpen game. That's what I think is going to happen. Because I think we're going to see a bullpen game, at least 1, if not 2 this weekend at this rate. It's hard to envision that we won't get a bullpen game of some sort come that 3rd wild card game, should they get there. Because, again, they don't have any other options. What else do they have? They have Jack, you know what. It's really, really bad time to be a Mets fan advocating for strong pitching, because that's something that outside of Noel McLean and Brandon Sproat for the most part has yet to be seen. And Jonathan, too fickle. Nothing personal on Jonah. Love the kid. Very excited about his future, but he doesn't have it yet. And that's okay. It's okay to not have it yet. Not his fault. If you had to give an honest answer, what do you think the percentage of Mendoza being gone is? Should we miss it? I think the percent of Carlos Mendoza to be fired should the Mets miss playoffs currently sitting is we're at 35-40% range. I think it's below 50%. I think David Stearns is not going to be happy with the idea of firing just his second-year manager, a first-time manager nonetheless. Because if David does that, it further proves how much he failed with that hire. And at the same time, if David keeps Mendy, then he then has to eat the fact that he made the wrong decisions. Because this blame can't go on just one person. I think if you fire Mendoza but don't do a lot else around that, you're utilizing him as a fall guy you're trying to save face for, and I don't think that's going to bode this team in the long run. I could be wrong, obviously, but I have my rightful concerns just like everybody else with this. I don't think it's smooth one way or the other. I think the Mets have backed themselves in a corner given everything that's went wrong this year, knowing that you may not make playoffs with Juan Soto having the best offensive season in Mets franchise history. For all that to happen, you'd have to think Steve Cohen is knocking on David Stearns' door aggressively, saying there needs to be change. And at the end of the day, Steve has invested so much in this team, and he's embarrassed. Just think for a second how embarrassed Steve Cohen is as Mets owner right now to see things unravel the way that they have been. For him to be as vocal and as extrovert of a fan-based owner that he has been, to see this kind of product, there is no one more frustrated and more bothered and more genuinely pissed off than the owner itself. And I truly do believe that should this trend continue, and if the Mets do nothing of special come postseason play, even if they get there, that I think Steve Cohen is going to pull some Artie Moreno shit and get his hands in this. And the problem with that is, I just hope that isn't too overreactionary, where he's getting his hands in things that are going to still hurt the team. Because we've seen Steve Cohen act ultra aggressive and really do what the fans have longed for, but we've seen that come back to bite us in the ass because we just want him to spend the biggest bucks. And it's hard to envision a world where Steve Cohen sits content, calm, cool, and collected in a world where if the Mets A, do not make playoffs, or B, get bounced right away and look like a laughingstock in LOL Mets narrative yet again heading into the 2026 offseason here. So 2025-2026 offseason. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think we're going to see some abrupt change, some fair drasticness, but how much of that is internal options promoted versus external options acquired, that is something that we're going to have a great discussion of come this offseason. Who would you rather have? Luis Arraez? I never want Luis Arraez on the New York Mets. Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm. Jazz, obviously. Now you're talking about a lot of different players. Okay, so I guess I'll respond to this and what is best for current Mets team need. So based on current Mets team need, I would say I would want Jazz Chisholm the most out of that group. Cody Bellinger would be right up there because I know Belly could handle center and he looked great there. Bellinger's a guy that don't be surprised if the Mets go after once he's available. Yankees fans are going to do everything in their power for him to return, and he would love to return the Yankees, I'm sure. But if there's one thing that Steve Cohen can F around and do, it's be the difference maker by flexing the guns. Not that flexing the guns has led to much success at this point, because it really hasn't. When we look at the grand scheme of things of spending money, it has with certain areas, but it has failed drastically in others. You do have to wonder just how much scorched earth we could see Steve Cohen get this offseason. Not a chance in Eric Chavez is here next year, regardless of what the Mets do. His ass is grass. He's out of here. No doubt in my mind, literally. Jesus, hey Wardy, how's it going? Been a while with keeping up with the Mets team, but the question, how and when did the Mets end up in this position? Very simple answer. It started on June 13th. On June 13th was the begin of the end of this Mets season. Kodai Singh went down with injury. Howard McGill went down with injury shortly after. Griffin Canning ruptured his Achilles, and everything else completely fell flat on its face from that point on. The Mets are at least 15 games below 500 since June 13th. The Mets have the 5th worst record in baseball over that span of over 80 games now. This is not a collapse that some idiots out there are claiming. No, the reality is that this Mets team has just been a bad baseball team for more often than not this season. And now that we know that, it makes it a little bit easier of a pill to swallow should the season continue to conclude the way it's looking right now. But knowing that the Diamondbacks are just 3 outs away, are a little over 3 outs away from losing to the Dodgers, barring another late comeback today, we will see a Mets team still staying afloat somehow, some way in wild card contention. Do they deserve to be here? Not a chance in hell. But are they here right now, and are they still alive? Yes, they most certainly are. So that is what I got to say about that, everybody. And thank you so much for the donation, Sean. We got bailed out, LFGM. We did get bailed out to a degree, but you still got to make sure the Dodgers win tonight. Thank you for the donation, Sean. Love you. Bad Team Parent says, notice that when the Mets come off a huge win, they have a dud. Such is the issue with the team's zero consistency. Almost certainly. This is a prime example of how their season has went. No doubt about it. But folks, I got to get out of here. It's time for me to record a nice little quick video for Bleacher Report. I also have content that I'll be dropping for you guys early tomorrow, so be on the lookout for it. We're going to talk more on the Jose Siri being parted with, Tyrone Taylor's return. We're going to talk about other moves the Mets can do for this roster, how bananas Carlos Mendoza is getting right now with this rotation and bullpen, why it's a shit show, why it's a problem, and why you shouldn't be optimistic, why you might have a reason to be optimistic, but all in all, here's to say that we have to get down into the latest in Mets land. So I'm going to go record my recap video for the Bleacher Report app. If you guys want to check that out, please do so. Head over to Bleacher Report, look up Mets, and then make sure you're checking out in the AM. The video will drop officially then, if not tonight. Now they'll post it, and I'll give you guys a quick 2 to 3 minute recap on everything that went wrong in this 10-3 loss. And I will have content dropping tomorrow in the Bleacher Report app at some point in time over the next 24 hours on who is most deserving of the American League MVP, Cal Riley or Aaron Judge. There are great arguments for both. You have Cal Riley, who's having a historic season for a switch-hitting catcher. You're having Aaron Judge, who's having a historic season even for Aaron Judge. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of both of them, along with plenty more content in the baseball space that you guys will see tomorrow. So be on the lookout for it. If we do a watch party, it'll again be on Draft Deck Mark's playback channel. Head over to playback.tv/DraftDeckMark. Barring changes, I'll probably be attending as of now. So until then, everybody, have a fantastic rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. Try to enjoy your evening. Try to get some sleep, and just try to have yourself some stress-free time not watching Mets baseball. Thank you guys again. And as always, no matter what, no matter